Field by field, Mazex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Mazex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit mazex.com to find your local Mazex representative.
Let's talk markets. There's a lot happening. No doubt, especially with the report earlier this week. Joining us right now is Chip Flory, host of AgriTalk. Chip, how are you doing?
Doing good, John. How about you, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
How you excited about the back end of baseball season here?
Yeah. Actually, I am. We've lost two in a row. The Cubs have lost two in a row, but we've got this team coming in from the American League East that I think we should be able to handle pretty.
Well, mostly everybody has.
That's right.
Yeah, of course, it's my Toronto Blue Jays. Okay, we had a report on Monday.
Yeah.
Surprise?
I was surprised by a couple of things. Number one, that USDA made as many adjustments on the acres as they did. And I understand they took a look at the Farm Service Agency certified acreage data. They implemented that for the second year now. I get all of that, but to actually see the adjustments to the acreage on a somewhat timely basis, I think is probably a surprise to a lot of people. So they took more than 700,000 acres off of the corn crop. They added about 1 million acres to the bean crop. And the net gain in acres is what I was anticipating. I didn't think that we had counted all the acres yet. So a net gain is what I wanted to see. And we moved some acres from corn to soybeans because of some late plantings in the Northwest production areas.
Yeah. What about on the yield side of the equation?
Yeah.
That
big.
Yeah,
183.1, 225 bushels per acre out of Illinois. Those are huge numbers. And we're expected to do the 183.1 for a national average corn yield without help from the Southeast. There are some areas that are a dud. And I didn't think that we could do a 183 with some areas being a dud. And here we are because the Corn Belt states are as good as what they are. Record yields in Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa are going to build that yield up pretty quick. You got to throw Nebraska into the mix there, South Dakota, Minnesota coming in the same as it was a year ago at 185 bushels per acre. That seems a little optimistic, but we can't forget that Minnesota had some really, really bad yields in the southeast part of the state, which is typically a year ago had really bad yields in the southeast part of the state, which is typically a really good yielding part of the state. So, 183.1, I would like to think, oh, that's the biggest number we're going to see all year and go through that whole process. But I don't know if we can do that because the condition of the crop is holding on. We continue to get rains through August, the cooler than normal temperatures as the crop is filling kernels is going to extend that kernel fill period. And if you extend the kernel fill period, all you're doing is giving the kernels more time to gain weight, and weight is yield. And it's hard to say too much negative about this corn crop. And then the bean crop, 53.2 bushels per acre, 7/10 of a bushel above trade expectations. There's some big yields out there. Illinois at 66. Wow. That's a big number coming out of Illinois. So the question is, can Illinois hold on to what it's built? And we'll figure that out as time goes on.
Well, and you're going to get a good look at it here very shortly because you got crop tour. Wait,
Yep.
Is that next week already?
Next week already. Yes.
Time flies. You're going to get a firsthand look at a lot of these acres, and I guess you'll be able to give us a bit of an indication. Hey, take the under, or like you said, oh boy, yeah, there's some. It's pretty good out there.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll get that figured out. I think Sean, the bottom line is for the corn and soybean crops that have made it to this point, they've had what they need to put on good yield, to put on a big ear, to fill pods. They've had what they need. So the question is, how many ears are out there? And how much of the soybean factory is up and running? How many pods in a 3 by 3 foot square? And we'll get the answers to that. And we can't forget that it was a doggone difficult planting season for a lot of areas, and that might have hurt the ear population just a little bit in some of these states. So we'll see if the ears are out there. If there's one number that I really, really trust from Crop Tour, if I had to break it all down, it would be the ear population numbers. It gives us a really good idea of how much of the factory is up and running 1 year to the next.
Yeah, the historical information you're able to extrapolate. Okay, you know what? I kind of believe what the reports are saying, versus like, okay, there's some doubt there, right? So that historical stuff is very, very valuable. So I guess, not to be negative about this, but we've got some production potentially to deal with. So how does I keep on going back to this word burden? How does this burden the market? That's kind of the word that comes to mind.
Corn, I think, has been getting used to this number for quite some time, because we've got a 2024-25 corn carryover projection or forecast just under 2.1 billion bushels, and we've been factoring that in for quite some time. I think that's why the December contract is finding some support just under $4. Beans are a different story. You look at that carryover projection for the 24-25 marketing year at 560 million bushels. The market had no idea that it was going to be dealing with a carryover projection that high just on Monday morning of this week. The market didn't know that it was going to be dealing with that. So after 2 days of steep losses in bean prices, we did catch a bid in the overnight trade, did trade a little bit higher. We'll see if that turns into some price gains that the market can hold on to through the day. But longer term, just the simple fact that we got down into that 950 range in the Novi beans and did find an ability to bounce, I think that's very important for us going forward.
Yeah, I think you got to take some. I agree with you. I think you got to take some positivity in the fact that corn has not, trounced to the downside based on this news, right? Because that would be the easy trade, or the easy bet that a lot of people would make. And there's a lot of analysts. You've talked to a lot of the same people too. They've got a lot lower expectation for that December corn future than where we're at here today. Yeah. Technically, for the rest that we got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, what needs to happen in the corn trade for you to feel good about us hanging close to this 4 number?
Close above $4 in the D's. If we can close the week above $4 in the D's, I'm going to feel pretty positive about it. Like I said, we took those harvested acreage out of the mix and we added in the yield. So the net result on the corn crop was only a 47 million bushel increase from the July projection. So it's not like all of a sudden we got 150 million bushels more of beans. That's a big change. 50 million bushels of corn, we ought to be able to absorb that with what the market already had built into prices. But boy, soybeans, that's a different story.
Yeah, and if you look at that November soybean chart and you go back to about, I don't know, May, middle of May, we have, we have since like the May 23rd, we were about 12.15, 12.17, and like you said, we're down in that 965. You're taking $2.50 off of it. That's substantial.
Oh, it certainly is. And that's what you get when you go through a couple of months of the booking season and not get a lot of attention from China. That's what you get when you get those big rains during pod fill and cool temperatures during pod fill across the I states. It's It's look there. Here comes your burdensome word
Yeah.
again, because it is starting to feel like the supply is burdensome. And not only that, Sean, but it feels like it's snowballing, and it's going to be a big factor on what the acreage mix is going to be in 2025.
Yeah, good point on that one. China's been, giving South America the attention from a buying perspective. Where the Brazilian and Argentine beans were going, has the U.S. not been able to grab some of that, or is it just not significant enough to make up the difference?
Well, Brazil is producing enough beans to steal market share from the U.S. and continue to satisfy the needs of the bulk of the needs from its traditional customers. So it's the expansion of the Brazilian production that's a real problem, and I think it's going to continue to be a problem. They will expand their acres. I don't think there's much question about that for the next crop. Uh, but it the Brazilian producer is still sensitive to the margins that farming generate. And if you're looking at negative margins, it will hold back their expansion on acres for the 2025 harvest. I just don't think there's any question about that. But still, nonetheless, I would anticipate that Brazil is going to grow more acres of soybeans for 2025, and do everything that they can to take as much market share away from the U.S. as they can. It's a it's a big part of the reason why we are looking to quote unquote domesticate the soybean market, Sean, by expanding the crush and pushing more soybean oil into the biofuels market, which now all of a sudden it looks like some of our biggest biofuel markets want to put a cap on just how much soybean oil can be used in the production of the fuel for them.
So to wrap up, Chip, strategy wise, what do you suggest to growers at this point in time? Everybody's situation individually is different. From a broad stroke perspective, what's going to be rattling through growers' minds as they think about their marketing on the 24 crop?
Okay, the bean market has made an adjustment since we got the August production and supply and demand reports. We took about 45 cents, something like that, off of soybean prices. So that is a major adjustment. Now that we've made that adjustment, let's give it just a little bit of time and to settle in at this new pricing level, and see if we can't find some support right where we're at. Watch the $4 level. Actually, 397 is kind of the number. And if you want to get optimistic, 403. That's how tight these support and resistance levels are. If at the end of the week we can close above 403, I think that's really positive for this for December corn, and it will make me start to think that we've got a chance at a short covering rally in this corn market. The funds are still heavily short corn and soybeans. That's been the story for a long time. At some point, you got to think that there would be a profit taking short covering rally that will happen in corn and soybeans. It's just a question of from what level does it start. If we can start it from current levels, let's give it a little bit of time before we get too much more aggressive on making sales. But be ready. Be ready. If you get a 20-25 cent pop in corn, that's something that you should be looking to sell. If we get back the bulk of what we've lost out of soybeans the past 2 days, that's a rally that you should be looking to sell.
Are all the other commodities kind of watching corn? Right at this point, I know that's traditionally a rule. We need corn to lead us higher, but is this?
I think that's true to a certain extent, but wheat seems to be kind of in a world all by itself.
Doing wheat things.
Yeah, doing wheat things. The spring wheat crop is a good crop, but maybe just not as good as what they had anticipated. And then we've seen movement of Ukrainian troops onto Russian soil. We've seen a relocation of Russian troops away from offensive positions to defensive positions, I think it's a bigger deal than what the market is giving it credit for at this point, Sean. It for the first time in 4 years. Geez, I guess it is 4 years. For the first time in 4 years, it feels like the Russia-Ukraine situation could be a disruption to grain movement going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned not as good of a spring wheat crop as maybe some anticipated. I think that's what we're going to find out of Western Canada too, right? There's a lot of optimism about what yields could be 6-7 weeks ago, but
Right.
temperature turned up, moisture went away, and I think the heat's going to have an impact on some of the crops. So but again, a positive reaction may be short term. So be ready. Be ready.
Be ready. Yep. And even in North Dakota, where the yields are good, the protein levels aren't great, is what we're hearing off the early harvest of the spring wheat.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Chip, really appreciate you joining us here today.
Anytime, buddy.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Always enjoy our chat. So we'll talk to you Friday on AgriTalk. Okay.
Sounds good, Sean. Thanks, man.